Hello, welcome back to A Spiritual Ascension, my own 5-year journey where I'm telling my entire story um, of my spiritual ascension from 2020 to 2025, what happened before and what has happened since. So when I left off, I think it's episode 51, if I'm correct. I had just left Susan's house and found a room in a townhouse to rent out for the summer. And because I had just gone through, what was that, May and June, because this was the very beginning of July, probably right after July 4th weekend, whatever that weekend was. Um, I left Susan, she had asked me to leave. And the very next day, the universe provided this place for me. And I didn't even have the money to pay for it, but that's how you know that the universe is working, always working in your favor. Um, this girl could have immediately said no to me, like I'm only allowing people, to sublet my room that have money up front. Like, how am I going to trust you? Um, but that's how you know the universe is working in your favor. And I told her, I said, don't have any money. This was a Sunday night. I told her I get paid. My first paycheck was coming that Friday. As soon as I got my paycheck, I would send her the money, and she was okay with that. So always know that along your journey, that there's going to be miracles that open up for you. Okay. So that Monday she left to go, I forget what she did. She went up to New York State to do some work for 2 months. And that's why she always sublet her apartment, not apartment, but her room for that time. And it was a nice townhouse. There's three other roommates in there, and it was kind of more like a high buy. They kept to themselves and did their own thing. Um, I kind of just came into um, it kind of seemed like it was a rest period for me, a time to kind of be alone. And as I say, spirit wants to always, not always, wants to have that time with you, that solitude time, or in order to allow you to not only rest, but you've been around maybe some people, circumstances that you need to kind of release. And I had just gone through 2 months of going through like literal hell practically. Um, but I would guess it would be, I'm trying to think, probably those first couple weeks, those first 3 weeks in May were the most difficult part of my journey. There will be another area later on that happens that was also very difficult. But we'll get to that soon. But as I say, the universe always allows you some rest while you're going through this, time to kind of recoup, spending some time, being quiet to meditate. And this room was perfect because nobody was bothering me. And I still had my friend that had got the room for me when I first arrived in New York. Not the room, well, the hotel rooms as well as that lady's apartment that we stayed in for like a week and a half. So I was still in contact with him. Kind of a relationship had kind of started. And he had kind of said, well, it looks like you'll probably be staying here, in Brooklyn. And I'm kind of like saying to myself, well, I know I'm supposed to go to somewhere in New Hampshire, Maine. And I had told him that. I said, I know, and he already knew that I was very spiritual and that I had gifts. And he didn't really understand all this what was going on with me. And like I say before, a lot of times people may think that you're kind of having more of a mental breakdown rather than having a spiritual awakening. So just being careful of those situations where people try to label you because they're not understanding what you're going through. So then I'm saying to myself, am I supposed to be here? Am I supposed to, like, kind of doubting what had been told to me by spirit? Am I supposed to stay here? And then thinking, okay, well, once I get out of this 2 months, maybe it's going to be time for me to get an apartment here and to stay here and, um, maybe continue this relationship with him. Maybe it was something that was meant to be. I didn't feel like he was supposed to be my divine partner or anything. Um, he also had a lot of issues himself, but an attachment grew for him because one, he had helped me out throughout all um, this trial period that I had gone through. And also, he had been so supportive, financially as well as emotionally during that time. And so he would come over and keep me company. Um, and I looked forward because I had no one else. So I looked forward to his visits. Continuing to go to work at the wine merchant in the city every day. And I did enjoy that job. The thing was, the people who worked there had been there, were the original people who had kind of set up the company and everything. And they were stuck kind of doing things in one way. Um, there was a young man there also who I feel I can usually tell when someone needs to. Okay, so let me back up and say that you're going to be sent into situations where people need to either go through a lesson or need to have a spiritual awakening. And your light coming in to whatever that place is a prompt for them to either learn that lesson or to awaken. So this young man, there was kind of friction between him and I from the start. And he kind of was very ego driven and um, kind of wanted to boss me around in a way. And one day I kind of told him, like, like I've been doing, work for a very long time. So compared to, you're 10 years out of college, um, so this isn't going to work. Kind of, let me do my work, figure it out. If I have questions, like I'll come to you or whatever, or go to someone. But he just had a very strong ego driven, like, like I'm the big honcho around here type of thing. So there was a lot of kind of friction going on there. Um, but I was just happy at the end of the day to be able to kind of go back to my room and have some rest. Also, being in the city again. Um, so let me stop for 1 second. When I was with that woman up in the Bronx, that African woman, the older woman, at one point she said to me, she said, you're very pretty, but you're fat. And I was like, oh, okay. And that really, it didn't say so much that I kind of probably laughed it off. But since having, my son, I always had an issue with my weight after that. Growing up as a teenager, I could eat whatever I wanted to, was always active, running around, never gained weight, used to eat ice cream Sundays every Friday and never gained weight. And then after having, child, the weight started to come on. And so over the years, always having difficulty kind of keeping that weight off. And I would lose a lot of weight and then it would always come back and then I would lose weight and then it would come back. So when she said that, it kind of was like, well, I didn't think it was that big. But it was kind of in the back of my mind of um, that I knew I needed to start doing something about it. So during that 2 months also, I was trying to think, okay, I've tried this, I've tried that, I've tried this, I've tried that. And what seemed to keep coming to me was about fasting. And as I said before, in the very beginning, when I first went into that journey, like that May 1st period of not having any food. I think I was eating like one donut a day. There was this period where it's kind of like the universe putting you into a fast, right? And you seem to have more clarity of mind to kind of be able to have that space where you can hear the universe more clearly, right? And to know what you need to do next when you're kind of bogged down with a lot of food and things like that and just intense, like heaviness, you don't have that clarity of mind. So I started doing eating one meal a day, or some people refer to it as OMAD. And then on the weekends, I started doing 48-hour fasts. I would eat Friday. Usually I usually ate around 11 o'clock each day. And on Friday, I would eat at 11. And then I wouldn't eat anything else until Sunday at 11. And because I was kind of just there in my room on Saturdays, if I felt weak or anything, it was kind of just like I was able to just relax and kind of lay on the bed and, you know, get through that period of time of fasting. And I started to lose weight. And also in New York City, where I worked at, on my lunchtime, I would always just go walk for an hour, my hour lunch. So the weight again started to really come off. And you're in New York, you're going up and down stairs in the subway and trying to run to catch the subway. So you're always kind of on the move. And you really kind of don't even need a gym or have to worry about that. But over from the end of July, I kind of started until I was ready to leave there Labor Day. Um, I had lost probably how much did I lose? At least 15 pounds, I think. About 15 pounds. So I was feeling like really good, like this rest period wasn't only for, recuperation from this part of the journey, but also to heal myself physically. So now Labor Day's about to come up, and the girl who had the room, who had gone away, was getting ready to come back the day after Labor Day. So I needed to be out. I needed to find another place. And I had been looking for a couple weeks, like usually if you're trying to find, I didn't have enough money to get a whole apartment. New York apartments are very expensive. And but I had enough to like get another room somewhere. And I've been looking for weeks, and really you can only do it like a month ahead of time because people move out, and then landlords will open up a space and say, okay, put it online. So I started looking like early August, and nothing was coming through. Nothing was coming through. And I met up with my friend on Labor Day. They do a big parade in Brooklyn on Labor Day. So I met up with him to kind of not go to the parade, but kind of go by the parade, go and have some lunch. And he's like, well, you got to move out tomorrow. Have you found a place? And I'm like, no, I still. And he's like, oh, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? And I know he didn't want to take on that responsibility. He had already been through so much with me. And I said, I don't know. I don't know. He's like, well, you better find an answer. You better find it. I'm like, I know, I know, I know. And I can't kind of explain to him that, I'm going to the divine asking for help. And the thing is, the divine already knew what I needed exactly at the time I needed it. So I went home that day, and all day I'm on like Facebook Marketplace and looking for a room, and scammers and everybody else is on there, and everything, I already um, rented out the room I would get or whatever may happen. Like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? So I had money, and I said, well, the worst case scenario at this point is I'll have to go to a hotel. And I had contacted a couple more people on Facebook Marketplace for rooms. And then all of a sudden, this woman contacted me back, and she was in Queens, and she had a room for rent. And I said, well, when can I come see it? Because I like need it immediately. And she goes, well, I'm here early tomorrow morning if you want to come around 6 o'clock. I'm like, oh my God, that's so perfect. So I said, I will be there at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, which was the same day as this woman was supposed to come back from her upstate trip. So I thought I was going to move out that day. But since she wasn't coming back till the next day, I was able to stay there another night. I had all my bags packed. Um, I called a lift and early in the morning, and I went 6 o'clock in the morning, was there right at 6 o'clock, and she met me outside and took me up to upstairs where the room was and showed me the room, and there was a kitchen area and everything and bathroom. And I I'm like, well, if you're open to, having me. And she says, I read your profile online, and I see the work that you did, because back then I used to have that, um, that I was, a psychic medium and everything. I don't have that information on it right now. So she said, I see that you have gifts. And I think she was either Indian or Pakistani, something like that. And um, they're very nice, very kind. And I said yes. So I feel like like the divine put her there for a reason. And she was open to who I was. So sent her forth. She wanted to make sure she got the money, the security, and the first months. And I sent it through to her right then. And she said, okay. But then something about the like me putting it through like what do you call it, wire transfer to her bank, it didn't hit right away. So I said, well, can I at least bring my stuff to the room? And if anything happens later on, you don't receive it, then I'll leave. So she said, okay. So I took Uber back to the apartment in Brooklyn, got all my stuff, and then went back and dropped off all my stuff in the room. And I just left it there. And I didn't even have a bed or anything in there, nothing in there. She didn't provide, there was no bed provided. I washed up real quick in the bathroom and threw on a dress for work. And this was all new to me, this area of Queens. So she said, oh, you can get the bus across the street and it will take you to the A train, which is one of the subway lines coming out of Queens and going right into Manhattan. And so that's what I did. And later on that day, she let me know that she received the money. So when I left work that day, I went to the apartment, the room where she was. And I was just so grateful because now there was no rush now to get out of there. You know, this was going to be my place for a while. And I had no bed. So I had stopped and got some comforters and for then just put the comforters down on the floor. And that's what I slept on for like a week until I had ordered like a bed and a mattress. And like I say, when you don't think that the divine sees your needs or is there, just know that divine does things in the 11th hour in the nick of time at the last moment, and but always comes through. And just miracles, all these miracles that the universe wants you to witness because you're building, again, building trust in the universe to see you through your journey. Okay. Going to leave it there. Thank you again for being here, for listening to my story. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.